Welcome, welcome, welcome to Every Day with Stevie and J, the podcast, the vlog where we come together to just share with you the things that God has laid on our hearts concerning the everyday things that we go through in this life. God has an answer for
Yes, he
our
does.
everyday situation and our everyday circumstance. We're so glad that you're here today. And I'm glad for my co host, my brother from another mother.
Good to be here.
Good to see you, sir. How you feeling today?
Excited.
Excited.
I'm
All right.
excited. I'm always excited when I get an opportunity to sit with a friend and discuss things that matter.
Man, I am
Matter
so
of things.
excited, man. By it's been a minute since we got here, man.
Yeah.
So I've been wondering, man. Did I say something wrong or something? I ain't know, man.
Nah, we
So,
good. The virus. The virus, my brother.
but when we good, man. So what at this taping, we are week three. Are we this third week?
About third week, yeah.
Third
Probably
week
about third week.
of what has been known as the pandemic of the coronavirus. Um, and I just got a real simple question, man. Um, what is the church? Where is the church in this crisis, or is the church in crisis itself?
I think the crisis has revealed the crisis of the church,
Ah, okay,
as well as
okay,
it revealed
okay.
crisis in all of our lives. I think
Uh
all
huh.
of us are in a crisis, and we make up the church. So, by and large, the church, of course, is in a crisis.
Yes,
And
sir.
this only depicts the places that our foundations are cracked in.
Wow.
The definition of a crisis is a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we find ourselves at, in a
That's where
time of
we are.
difficulty, danger, and trouble.
That's where we are.
And so, whenever a crisis appears, I was thinking about this the other day. A crisis will reveal cracks.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And so what we find is cracks in all facets of our lives,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whether it's the financial, whether it's spouse to spouse, parent to child, finances. We see cracks all over the place. Cracks that we normally would have glossed over
Wow.
because distractions cause us to gloss over things that really should matter. And I think we find ourselves, man, looking at some things that we normally wouldn't stop long enough to look at.
Hmm.
And so here we are sitting in a place wondering, man, I never noticed that, or I never noticed my child, or I never noticed the importance of a school teacher. I never noticed the importance of the guy who's stocking at Walmart, or
Mm-hmm.
never noticed the importance. We took everything for granted because of we didn't see a need for it.
Yeah.
We knew it was there, we knew it was important, but did we really need it?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
And so now the Walmart worker is as important as the government officials because without them, there we go. So
Wow.
I think it causes us to stop and look long enough to say, man, I didn't know that place in my life was exposed,
Yeah.
was cracked, was
Yeah.
fractured. So
Yeah.
to me, crisis revealed cracks.
Okay, so with the revelation of those cracks, these cracks that we're seeing, not only in our preparedness for pandemics
Hmm.
as a nation, but in our finances,
Hmm.
and because this is touching every aspect of our life. I mean, people are can't go to work.
Right.
You know, um, this is touching so many facets of life,
Hmm.
and it's not just revealing an individual crack in you or in
Right.
myself. It's revealing the shards of a fractured nation.
The funny thing is, too, is along with that is the fact that this is not exclusive to a particular community of people
Hmm.
or a country or some little nation over there tucked in the corner. This is a global situation,
Yes, sir. Yes,
which
sir.
to my generation, this is the first time I've been involved in a global pandemic. So now what we're realizing is that this is a global thing that this is around the world that everybody's lives have been impacted, and we all see from our perch that man, this is fractured and this is fractured, and I can't say this is only in Africa, or it's only in
Yes.
China, or it's only in
Yes.
Japan or Italy. This is at my front door. This
Hmm.
is in my community. This is in my ethnic group. This is in my church, and this is all over. This is global.
Yes,
This
sir.
isn't exclusive to
Yeah.
just um, a certain group of people. This is exclusive to humanity
Yeah.
at large.
Uh, I'm reminded. I'm reminded in the book of Joshua, and that's where God had me. Joshua 3, when they left Shittim, and to go to the Jordan,
Hmm.
and he tells them, he says, we have not. He tells them how to move carefully because we've not passed this way
Hmm.
heretofore.
Hmm.
We've not been here before.
No.
And so, even though we may be one of the most prosperous nations in the world, uh, we've not been here before. And so with that being said, we cannot apply the same practices.
No.
We'll never be the same. This
No.
nation will never be the same.
I think this has caused us another 9/11
Mm,
that's faceless.
yeah,
9/11 had a face to it.
yeah.
This is a faceless terrorist who
Ooh.
doesn't need a visa, doesn't need an airport.
Mm-mm.
He doesn't need, all he needs is a host. He just needs a host. And what does he need as a host? A human. So, and he can travel quietly, unexpectedly.
Mm,
He just travels where you go, and
yeah.
you know, you can't look at that person and say he looks like a terrorist because you have no idea.
Wow.
And so again, this is a faceless terrorist who has wreaked havoc globally.
Globally.
And everybody's affected by this thing. There's not a particular group. This is not a financial pandemic alone. This is not a human. This touched every area of our life
Mm.
and everybody who's alive.
Yes, sir.
There's
Yes,
no
sir.
group that's apart from this.
So the question then becomes: I know we're getting directions from our local, state, and national officials, basically shelter in place,
Hmm.
self quarantine, social distancing. It's affecting everything. I mean, when I knew it was serious when they shut March Madness down.
Hmm.
I said, "Oh my goodness,
Well, even when they shut the NBA
they
down,
shut the NBA." Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
these are global money makers.
Yes, sir.
So when they decided
In the billions of
we
dollars.
can't afford this,
Oh.
we can't afford this, then obviously it's serious.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then it trickles down.
Yeah.
But again, I think this is intentional. Again, we understand that God is sovereign in the affairs of men. So God will allow some things for us to see some things that we normally wouldn't take a peek at. Again, I can gloss over a lot of things because I can distract myself with sports and my job and just casual life.
Mhm.
But this doesn't give me the opportunity just to gloss over.
No.
And so I'm having to stop long enough to take a look and look at my finances, look at my relationship with my children, and look at my relationship with my spouse, and look at my relationship with my neighbor, because now I'm being forced to stop long enough to take a look at some things that I normally wouldn't look at.
Mm.
Now, I was thinking this the other day that a lot of times we go home because we have to go home,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because that's where I live, that's where my wife is, that's where my children are if we have children. But the question is, do I really want to go home?
Mm.
And now we're confined to having to be home.
Mhm.
And now we're looking at our relationships and realizing, man, I really don't know you, or I really don't want to be here because I don't know how to do life with you. Not on a 24-hour basis, not when I'm quarantined with you. And it's kind of ironic that the woman or the man that you married or the person that you're with, you can't be with them for 24 hours. Now we know we need our space, we need our,
Yeah.
I need some time alone. I get that. But people are going crazy, man, thinking that I got to be home all day long with you.
Yeah.
I got to be home all day long with y'all.
With y'all.
Them
Yeah.
kids too. Them kids that you had.
I saw somebody. I saw a post that said, uh, "These kids, these teachers gonna have to pay me for keeping their kids."
funny too,
Yeah,
though, man, because you think about
it
it, man.
is.
We send our kids to school, and the teacher has them for 6 hours a day, and they come home, and we set them aside, and then we feed them, and then we get them ready for bed, and we do that 5 days a week.
Hmm.
And on Saturdays, they're in sports, and we traveling around with them. And on Sunday, if we ain't at church, we doing other things, and then Monday it starts all over again. So when do we really spend time with our children?
Yes.
I mean, really spend intentional time with our children or with our spouses. Because
Hmm.
again, we've been busy doing life
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
We doing everyday life, which
Yeah.
looks like what? I go to work, I come home, I spend a few minutes with the people that make up my house,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I do this the next day and the next day. And now my norm has become abnormal with this virus. And it's deeper than a virus.
It
You know, it's
is.
more than just a virus.
Hmm.
A virus is the impetus why we're doing this other stuff, but we
Yeah.
haven't looked at this other stuff. But man, it's tough for people to just think. I thought about this the other day. For the people that are abused by in-house abuser, and now they're confined to be at home with this abuser. Imagine the emotional trauma that's happened to that person, where
Mm.
school was an opportunity to get out from under that, or work was an opportunity to get out from under that. But now they're confined to the home, and they can't go nowhere. So the abuse that's continually going on, man, is going to manifest itself once the dust settles.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an emotional thing that's happening in the dark, man. It's going to reveal itself in the
Mm.
light, and we got to be ready for that.
Wow. I think about, and this just is while you were talking, this just came to me. Scripture thing is in Revelations. Those things that there's gonna come a shaking,
Hmm.
and I don't think this is ultimately what Revelation had in place, had in mind
Hmm.
when at that point. But it makes me think of that. There will be a shaking to the degree that those things that can be shaken will
We'll
be
be
shaken,
shaken.
and those that remain, they're going to be standing
Hmm.
solid. I think this is a shaking of those things that have given us the facade of stability.
You know, it's funny. To your point, Matthew at starting at chapter 5, when Jesus is talking about the Beatitudes, and he's going through the Beatitudes, divorce, the law. He's going through a lot of things
Hmm.
in chapter 5 and 6, and he gets to chapter 7 after talking to them through 2 chapters,
Hmm. Hmm.
and he says this. He says, "A wise man builds his house on on a rock,"
Yes.
and it says, "When the storms came, the house stood, but the fool built his house on sand,
Hmm.
and the same storm came, and everything came, and it said, and great was the fall."
Great was the fall.
It wasn't just a fall, but it was a great fall.
Yeah.
Because in that house is not just him alone, but everything and everybody
Yeah.
that's connected to him. And so great is the fall. So what we're seeing is that those persons who have built their house on a rock and those persons who built their houses on a sand, and it's the same storm,
Same. So we're all experiencing it.
the
We
same
we can't
storm,
say that I'm not. I didn't feel it the way you felt it.
right?
It's the same storm.
Yeah. And so when we see this same storm approaching our houses, and what we realize, man, is that this person's house fall was great,
Hmm.
and this one is still standing, and it's not by accident. It says and Jesus says, if you give an ear to my sayings, if you followed my instructions, if you give an ear to my sayings, then this wise man, you would have been the wise man that built his
Hmm.
house on
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
rock. So for those persons who have chosen to follow Christ and to obey his commands, this does not move them.
Come on.
Doesn't mean the wind doesn't blow, doesn't mean the storm doesn't come, but it doesn't move them to the degree that their house falls.
Yes. Yes.
We
Yeah.
still we feel the same, we see the same, but our house doesn't fall
Hmm.
because we built our house on the rock. That rock being Christ, that rock
Yes.
being the word, that rock being everything that pertains to godliness.
Yes.
And so when we look at somebody and we wonder, why aren't they shaken? Why aren't they moved? Because built their house on a rock.
And I have to assure people or allay people's fears or apprehensions. It's not because I don't it doesn't concern me.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
not that I'm not sensitive to what's
right.
going on. I recognize people's lives
Being
are being
lost.
lost.
Yeah.
I understand that, but there's a quiet confidence,
Hmm.
not in my ability, but in His ability to keep me.
Yeah.
He
Paul
said,
said this. Paul said, I know in whom I believe.
yes,
And he's
yes,
able to keep that which I've committed unto him
yes,
until that day.
until that day.
He said, I know in whom I believe. I'm
Yes,
good. And I know
yes.
he's able to keep that I committed unto him. What is he talking about? He's talking about his life.
His life, his
I've
life.
committed my way of being unto God and I'm good.
Wasn't it stuff? It wasn't.
No,
It
no.
wasn't. It wasn't extra toilet paper.
And
It
no, it
was.
wasn't paper towels. It wasn't
It
potted
was his
meat. It wasn't
life.
spam.
It was
It
his
was his
life.
life.
It was his life. I've committed my life to him.
Yeah, and he will keep me. Therefore, neither height nor depth, nor principalities, nor
Mm,
things present, nor things
things
to
to
come
come.
shall separate me from the love of God.
So this shaking, this shaking, it's my grandmother had this saying, it's all gonna come out in the wash.
Mm-hmm.
It's all gonna
It,
come out.
it
This
is.
shaking is it is revelation.
Mm-hmm.
It's revealing.
Absolutely.
It's revealing, and we can choose to ignore it, to turn a blind eye, to focus on other things, or we can ask the hard question. God, what are you saying? What are you saying?
And I don't need to ask that question for Jesse.
No.
I need to ask that question for me.
Yes.
Not the church, but for me.
Yes.
Not to the government, but to me.
Yes.
And so I think the question has to be is like, Lord, what are you showing me about myself?
Mhm. Mhm.
Where are my cracks, Lord? What
Yes.
did I build on sand?
Mhm.
And 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 God will show you what you built on sand. Whether you built your life based on your reputation, whether you built your life on your career or your finances, or even so much as your family.
Mhm.
They said, Jesus, your mom, and your brother at the door. He said, who is my mother or my brother but they that do the will of my father? So again, when we talk about family being um, that thing that we will die for,
Mhm.
but you won't die for Christ, then that's a questionable thing because I can't say I'll die for my family, but I won't die for Christ.
Yeah.
That doesn't work well with them,
Mm-mm.
especially when He died for me.
Especially when he died for me.
Yeah. So again, I think we're having to look at all these aspects of our lives and bring it into question, Lord. Where is the cracks in my life? What have I trusted in that I shouldn't have
Ooh.
trusted in? What did I replace you with? Because we replaced him with something
Mhm. Mhm.
to some degree. I replaced him with my marriage. I replaced him with my children. I replaced him with my spouse. I replaced him with who I am, with my career, with these things. And
Mhm.
God's like, okay, if I'm not all that to you, then let me just leave the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when He leaves the room, life leaves, light leaves,
He takes his
love
ball and goes
leaves.
home. Yeah.
I'm taking my ball and I'm going
Going
home.
home. Yeah. Yeah.
Now what you gonna play
Since
with?
you don't want me,
Yeah,
since you don't want me, then you don't want my
no.
things.
And I own everything. Matter of fact, I really own you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna be nice enough to leave you here
Yeah.
so you can reevaluate yourself, and then I'm gonna come back and see what you
I'm
want
gonna
to do.
come back in 15 minutes. See if you're
I'm gonna give you 15 minutes
yeah.
to deal with this, and then we. But again, I think we have to ask ourselves, Lord, what are you showing me?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
it's deeper than the virus.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much. It's so much deeper than that. For for, for me, just for me, it was a reset.
Hmm.
It was a reset. It was God saying, okay, let me set this thing back in order for you. Let me give you perspective and priority. For me. It really was a reset.
And to your
Yeah.
point, I had to revisit some things.
Mhm.
Lord, what really had I made more important than you?
Mhm.
What really mattered to me more than you? And I think in these last couple of weeks, man, I really had to stop and say, Lord, wow, man, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I got a crack over here. I got a fracture over there. So, what am I going to do with this thing? And I think the biggest work is going to come after this settles.
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's when
sir.
the real work is going to come because a lot of us are going to walk away from what we saw,
Hmm.
trying to rush to get back to life as usual. And we're going to
My
just
God.
compromise on all the cracks that God shows. We're going to compromise and we're going to build a house over top of the cracks, not realizing that when the next one comes, great will be the fall.
I revealed the crack so that you could prepare
Hmm.
or repair.
Repair?
I build the crack so that you could repair
Hmm.
what's clearly and visibly not whole.
Absolutely.
And that, and I see that. Um, I heard Pastor Jamal Bryant say it like this: culture shifts changes every 4 years. Church culture shifts every 16 years. I think I got that right. So
Hmm.
he says there's 12 years. We're 12 years behind
Hmm.
the latest culture
Absolutely.
shift. I heard that. I took that um, um, with a grain of salt because I don't necessarily think that the church should shift every time the
Hmm.
culture shifts.
God said, I change not. Regardless of what's going on, I change not.
Yeah.
And so I think there are certain opportunities that we're presented that we have to, and I don't want to use the word relevant. I think we have to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Paul said this: "I've become all things to all men that I may save some."
Yeah.
He didn't become a drunkard to be a
Mm-mm.
save a drunkard,
Mm-mm.
but he was able to partner to come
Adjust.
alongside, just to come
Adjust.
alongside.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to come alongside. But again, I don't think we have become a subculture rather than a
Mm. Come
counterculture.
on. Come on. Come on. Speak to that, man.
And
Speak to that.
so being a subculture means I just come under the culture. A counterculture is one that counters the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so what makes us different than the culture
Yeah.
is when we are counter to that. Darkness, light,
Yes.
death, life,
Mm-hmm.
righteousness, unrighteousness. That's a counterculture.
Yeah.
So have we really been a counterculture or a subculture?
Mm.
And I think God never intended us to be a subculture,
Subculture. Yeah.
but a counterculture.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot to look at during this crisis, during this
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, that we have to look at individually. And I think if we address it individually and allow God to fix what we've done wrong, I think when we come back together as a church, we'll be better off. And if we
Mm.
don't, great will be the fall, because I think
Great.
this is just the beginning
Yes, sir.
of the stage being
I agree.
set.
I agree.
And I believe for the man to appear.
I agree.
Because
Ooh.
again, you think about this, that, and I'm not very astute in the prophetic side of this, but I just sense that in our generation, this is the first time we've seen a global pandemic. And what an opportunity for us to begin to be conditioned to have this global perspective. Because at some point, this guy that shows up is going to have the answer
For the whole
for
world.
the whole world. And so now everything we're seeing is a matter of the whole world. So if he can begin to condition us to have this global perspective and not be